Hey guys, Michael here once again. I'm really excited to post this special video chat I recorded with two people who are making big waves for themselves in the photography industry and balance their business as partners in life as well. And today I'll be talking with Joel and Justyna Bedford, two photographers who've made quite a name for themselves in recent times. They're booked solid nearly all year round. They're picking up awards and getting published left, right, and center. And I really wanted to explore the dynamic of them as a couple and as partners in business and find out how they're making it work so well for them. We're going to talk about what helped propel them to getting bookings all around the globe and working in some of the amazing destination locations, what unique perspective they bring to the table as image makers, and find out a few other secrets to their success as well. So for sure you'll love their warm and giving personalities and take away some great insight for your own photography moving forward. So sit back and enjoy our conversation. So guys, here we are. It's been a couple of years since I saw you guys last.
Yes.
And it looks like you guys have been very busy, and I'm really happy that you guys had a chance to agree to sit and talk with me about things today because, you know, I want to know what you guys have been up to. I've seen a lot of your work online, and it looks like you've been working very hard, and a lot of good things have come your way because of that hard work. And you're super talented. You seem to be traveling a lot. What's going on since the last time I saw you guys?
Well, I guess to fill everybody else in who might be watching, those who don't know, that Michael actually shot our wedding about 3 years ago. We found Michael online, just actually from a random search. We were looking for photographers and invited Michael. It was first and only option to shoot our wedding. So anyway, just wanted to give a little background on that.
Yeah.
Sorry, what did you ask me?
What did I ask you? I asked you guys that it's been a couple of years since I saw you last, and I know that, you know, when I first met you guys, when I first met you, it was Joel Bedford Photography, and I met Justyna, and I didn't know you guys were working together and shooting weddings together, and at some point that changed, and it looks like you guys are doing really well. So. You guys have been very busy for the last couple of years. So tell me a little bit about how you guys got started, because when I met you, it wasn't Joel and Justyna, it was Joel Bedford Photography.
That's it. So, well, in a nutshell, well, it's not going to be a nutshell actually,
No.
But what happened was I was dabbling in photography about 10 years ago in Toronto. I bought my first SLR and whatnot. Sorry, our dog's coming into frame. I bought my first SLR, and I was just messing about with photography. And as circumstances would have it, I just ended up moving back to Ottawa just to kind of get a bit of a fresh start. At which time I started assisting with a friend of mine who was already shooting weddings at the time here in Ottawa. So I kind of cut my teeth on weddings that way. And after about a year of, friends of friends asking me to shoot their weddings, I decided to go into business for myself, which I did for about 3 years, actually 2 years. And during this time, Justyna and I had been working together on other fashion projects, editorials and whatnot. And we started dating, I guess, about 3 years after meeting each other, at which point I needed somebody else to shoot with the weddings that I was doing already. And Justyna, on her first wedding that we shot together, was really influential, and you brought a whole new you did.
Yeah.
You did. You brought a whole new kind of vision to things.
So he's being far too kind. So it's actually well, we didn't live together right away, obviously, and he get board out of the way. Our dog's trying to climb on the laptop.
Come on, board.
Get out of here. So Joel came over to my place just before going to an engagement shoot, and I literally just tagged along without asking. I was like, I'm going to come. And anyway, so I think that's just how we started. I kind of invited myself in. And
So,
but we shot under Joel's name for a really long time. That was my own anxiety. I just figured if we added my name, it would fail instantly. So I was like, don't tell anybody I'm here. I'll just lurk in the background.
And for me, it was more of a convenience thing because I already set up the website and done all this, loose branding, I guess, of my own name. So to want to change that again, both of us just had no interest in that until it got to the point where we both realized, listen, we're both shooting these weddings. We're equals. We both bring something to the table equally. So let's do a rebrand. And I think since we've done that, things have really picked up even more so.
When did we?
We
Was that
rebranded
2 years
about
ago?
2 years and change ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So anyway, that's that. And we've just been busier ever since.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that I'm really interested about is, the dynamic between, couples in real life that work together as well. That's an interesting dynamic. I mean, you have your, romantic situation and then you have your business situation. And, there's a lot of, talk about like, is it cool? Is it great? Is it a wonderful thing? It seems to be working really well for you guys. So, what is it like to like, wake up together and then like roll over to the table and start doing emails, or like, what is your life like as business partners?
Well, the thing is, personally, I had a good, there was a good model for this already in place, in so much that my mom and dad ran a photography studio here in Ottawa for about 30 years together. So they had the exact same dynamic. They both worked together in photography. They ran a studio together. They didn't work from home, but they shared that working dynamic, the relationship dynamic too. They were always in close proximity of each other all day, every day. They made it work through a balance of, sense of humor. They both split up responsibilities. So I guess when Justyna and I work together, that's also, I guess what my parents had established for themselves, that kind of blends into what we're doing too. Yeah. So much that we work together. We obviously work at home together in close proximity, but we're not like glued together all day.
There was a learning curve for sure.
There was a bit of a learning curve. Yeah.
We both work differently. Like if it wasn't for Joel, I would literally be working 24 hours a day, and that'd be fine with me. It'd be like I like it. Joel sets more boundaries, and I think like when we first moved in together and we're working together, like, Joel would wake up a little bit after me, and I'd be in bed, like, answering emails, like, his eyes would just open a crack, and I'm like, oh my god, we have to take care of this, we gotta take care of that, oh my god, our text are, blah. And Joel's like, I have literally just opened my eyes. So we have to set a few rules like that. But
the upside to that, too, is that Justyna, there's always a bit of a fire burning under her. There's, you're a little more, I guess, on the ball. You start work a little bit earlier. You want to get going with things, and I try to slow Justyna down to be like, well, beyond work, we have to have our own hobbies. We have to have other things that make us happy to round out our lives. So I think in that way we complement each other every day.
Yeah.
What do you like to do to just chill out and relax?
I find makeup super therapeutic. I don't consider myself a girly girl, but I guess on some level I am. But one of my best friends is a makeup artist, and he luckily lives like just one block away, so he comes over at least once a week, and we just watch RuPaul's Drag Race and do makeup. I am a vintage collector, whether it's like our house is just full of stuff, and that's mostly my fault. I collect vintage ashtrays. I collect dresses that I will never fit into or wear, but I like to have them. I guess in terms of exercise and things like that, it's a new one every week. I can't stick to anything at all. I was into kickboxing for about a year, but then my gym moved, so that ended that.
So now you're into swimming.
Now I'm into swimming. I used to swim competitively, so
yeah.
I went twice this week, so that's huge for me.
So that's what we do, pretty much. And then there's, family time. My family lives in the city.
Yeah.
We just got a new dog, so we take care of him too. Yeah. So that kind of rounds us out a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, Ottawa's really cool as a wedding city by the sounds of things, but it looks like you're doing a lot of work, all over the place. You've got work in Italy, work in California. I was just looking at some weddings of yours earlier. one of the friends of mine had a question for you guys about, how does someone branch out from, maybe working in Ottawa, being based in Ottawa, to photographing weddings, outside of your own country?
Well, the very first that I can remember, the first wedding that we did that was out of country was actually the week before our own wedding. And we booked it through Fearless Photographers. I don't know if you guys, I'm sorry, I'm having such a weird time looking at myself on the screen. So we signed up for Fearless Photographers. We're not part of the organization anymore, but at the beginning. And if you don't know what Fearless is, they have the ability for couples to kind of log in and say, this is where my wedding is, and this is what I'm looking for. And then photographers that are interested and available say, yep, contact me. So we got lucky and we booked a wedding in Spain the week before our own wedding. And I think it kind of snowballed from there. I don't think there's a linear way to get into destination. I don't know. I guess it's just you just put it out there and hope for the best. And once you book your first one, just exploit it as much as possible. Throw it out there on the internet and let people know that you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah, because we had the exact same question when we started as well. Like, how do we travel with this? We saw other photographers traveling, and that was the goal in some ways. That we thought that maybe traveling for shooting weddings would make us better photographers, or get us to the next level. It's not like that, as any traveling wedding photographer will tell you. It's not about the venue or the destination that you're going to. It's you just have to do a good job in any city that you're working in. But beyond that, like Justyna said, through Fearless Photographer, we got one, and that turned into a referral for another, and then it just kind of snowballed like that. And it's just been kind of snowballing ever since. I think it's just about kind of putting yourself out there and just kind of seizing opportunities where you find them. Yeah. And then as long as you're doing good work, and you're, it's a cliche to say, but as long as you're being friendly and like a good person to work with, you're going to work again, and that's going to turn into a referral and so forth. And hopefully just keep working that way.
To add to Joel's point, like shooting in another destination isn't going to make you better, and isn't necessarily going to make you a better photographer, especially since there are so many out there that are shooting in different places. It's just, how do I want to put this? If you can't shoot well in your own local area, it's going to be hard for people to want to book you in other places, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. You know what? So if you can see my screen and looking at this wedding, this is just one of the weddings that I pulled from the portfolio. And actually, to be honest with you, your website, there seems to be a lot of content on it, which I like to see, because I think a lot of photographers have, there's always a lot of talk about, what's new, what's coming up, what are the best practices. And some people, say websites are dead, blogs are dead. And here I have your website, and there's like, pages and pages of weddings, and they're all, they're not 3-image weddings. These are full, this is a full thing. So, what does your website do for you? Because it looks like you spend a fair amount of time on it and putting content, which is great because it looks awesome. So, what does your website do for you? How important is your website to you in 2018?
Pretty important.
Yeah, I guess
I never heard that websites were dead. This is kind of news to us.
We're like, really? Oh, should we be doing something else?
Yeah, we're behind the curve. But really, most people know how Google works nowadays. You have to have fresh content, relevant content, consistently to rank higher. That's not my field of specialty. All that SEO stuff and website stuff is actually Justyna's file. But we constantly update because, we have stuff that we want to share, and it also helps with our Google ranking too. For different venues, we've been discovered. For example, that San Marcos wedding that you showed, we had shot there before, and it's only because we used the relevant, hashtags and search terms and included with our original blog post from, let's say, 2 years ago when we shot there, is part of the reason why that client found us and asked us to shoot there as well. Coincidentally, just this morning, we had another inquiry for the same venue. And they found us based on one of our blog posts. So, text and photos and just staying consistent and continuing to put up more content will hopefully help. Now, the one you have on screen right now is Liberty. What was it?
Liberty Warehouse.
Liberty Warehouse in Brooklyn. And we shot that one back in September. And we tag it a lot. I mean, we tag Brooklyn Wedding, New York Wedding, and in hopes just to get more bookings in those cities. So yeah, to answer your question, it is relevant. It's still relevant for us, and I think it's a nice way to show a bit of our work in a concise manner and a nicely edited manner, hopefully.
Yeah.
Nicely, indeed. I mean, I'm loving a lot of the stuff here, and a lot of the. To be honest with you, as a wedding photographer, there's very little wedding photography that I like to look at. I think over the years and years and years, you become a little bit saturated by it. And to be honest with you, a lot of the wedding industry is pretty much not fairly interesting. But when I see your work, I'm happy about it because I see that, I mean, I don't know about you, but I got into photography because I was, curious person, and I was interested in people and interested in, what I thought was weird things. And, when you have a camera, you're allowed to sort of investigate, those things, and you can do so safely because there's a bit of a buffer between you and that thing. And, weddings, there's a lot of this stuff that I see here that's very, I like the fact that you put that image there. And I like the fact that you took the time not only to take the image, but say, I'm going to make that, like, for example, this, I'm really influenced by street photographers and grew up, wanting to be a street photographer. And so, there's a lot of sort of angles and different plays on light, and it doesn't always have to be super serious. It can be kind of weird. It can be kind of edgy. And why weddings? Why do you guys like to photograph weddings? Like, what is it for you guys that you guys are excited about when you show up to shoot?
Well, like I touched on earlier, it kind of covers the whole spectrum of the photography that I'm interested in, from portraiture to a bit of fashion, documentary / street. Some still life too, if you want to get into the details of things. There's something for every type of photographer within wedding photography. I don't think it's always looked at from that perspective. That's why I enjoy it. And I love meeting new people every weekend. Everybody's on having a great time on one of their happiest days of their lives. And it's really sweet to be able to spend time with people on that day. We get asked all the time from people who aren't in the wedding industry, like, oh, you must get a bridezilla all the time. And the answer is actually no. I think we've had one, and she wasn't even that bad.
Yeah.
Everybody is always stoked and happy to be there. And I think that's a big reason why we're still doing this. It's just lovely people every weekend, and we get to share these moments with people too. And if we can kind of become a part of the celebration, and not just as an outside vendor, but actually, be involved with it too, it makes it so much better. I remember back in the day when my parents were shooting weddings, they would get very dressed up, and it would be this proper affair, and they would be very professional about it, which is totally cool, and you want to be professional. But I think the lines of professionalism can be blurred a little bit. Like Justyna and I will sometimes, I'll have a glass of wine in one hand and a camera in another. And I think that allows us to kind of integrate into a wedding a little bit better. So, yeah, but in a nutshell, I mean, like I said, it's just the whole spectrum of photography is in weddings. And that's why I love it. What about you, hon?
What Joel said, and I love the, just from a very narcissistic point of view, I love the idea that you're helping somebody remember this big day in their lives. And, these photos are, they're going to live on past the person. It's rare to find somebody that, like, oh, here's my grandma on her wedding day, I'm going to throw that in the garbage. You know what I mean? Like, these photos are so important, and they will live on past us, ideally, hopefully.
Yeah.
I love that. I love being part of helping somebody remember this day and helping create these memories.
So, as photographers, I mean, we know that, sometimes it's best to sort of work out sort of roles. I'm going to be maybe covering that sort of thing. Maybe you, Justyna, maybe cover that kind of thing. Like, do you guys have sort of an idea of like, if this person does that, this person does that, or how fluid is the relationship as photographers, at a wedding?
It started off a bit more structured. I think we used to approach weddings with a real game plan. Not that we don't nowadays, but we were well.
Maybe it's an inside joke, maybe.
Well, no, not really. I mean, we used to approach weddings. We'd go into a wedding and be like, okay, you take this and I'll do that. And then you go to the front and I'll stay at the back. And then we try to cover as much as possible. We're a little more fluid. We'll approach a wedding day. Sometimes we will be driving in the morning, we'll be driving to see the bride. And Justyna will be like, can I shoot her this morning? I know we talked about maybe me shooting the groom, but do you mind if I? And I'm like, yeah, go for it. And then I'll go with the groom, and we'll approach the day like that. When we get to a church, it's not like, okay, you have to be at the front and I'll be at the back. We'll cover the angle. Yeah, we talk about it a little bit, but usually it's a little more loose. And the fact that we've been working together for so long, we have a puppy here and he's growling a little bit. He wants me to play. So we've been working together so long now that we can kind of communicate with just eye contact alone. If I'm like, this to you, or I make an eye sign, what it means, and just like you make one to me, and that I know what it means. So,
I think, the only part that we're still pretty rigid on is like somebody has to be at the front, somebody has to be at the back when the bride walks in, and, we'll just use sign language or whatever and figure that out. That's the only part that I think we're still rigid on. And I guess what Joel was saying before, like when we first started weddings, it was like, you go with the groom, I'll go with the bride. And, you have to be separated at the beginning of the day. But now we've gotten to a point where it's almost better if we both go with the groom and then we both go to the bride. If a schedule allows us to do that, that's much more ideal. What I like about that is, and I guess we can collaborate more on the getting ready part. And there's less pressure for either one of us to absolutely get a specific shot. And I guess what that means is like we were shooting a wedding in Quebec City a couple of weeks ago, and we both photographed the bride getting ready. And it was really nice because like I was in the room the whole time just making sure nothing was missed. But Joel had the chance to like leave the room, go for a walk, find some good light, and then like we kind of tag team in and out of that. And it gives us a bit more of an opportunity to be more creative and do something different every week if we're both at both locations at the same time. Does that make any sense? Is that correct?
Why wouldn't it be?
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I feel it. I mean, I absolutely feel it. And there's so many images, actually. You guys are so damn good now. It's pretty unbelievable because, there's a lot of images. I mean, I don't know where you're, Justyna, I know Joel was a photographer previously to, photographing weddings, but, I think some people grow up with certain, references with regards to like photography or art. And there's a lot of images I see here that have all kinds of references to different things. And, for example, it's, this image with the guy just by himself and they're alone and doing this dance and she's fully committed in the dance. It makes me happy to see these sort of images because these are not the kind of images that, yes, she's wearing a white dress and it's a wedding day, but there's so much personality and it's such a great moment that it really just, it's more than just a wedding related photograph. This could be a good photograph in any, in any field. And so much of what you guys do is like that. And, I think that you guys, whatever you've been doing is just, really fantastic because I see so much personality and so much of your own character. And it's really fantastic. I mean, I'm sure your couples are very, very happy and you guys probably work your butts off during the day because it shows and you guys are really doing fantastic stuff. So much of this stuff actually is really unique to the industry, and I think we're just all happy that you guys are doing what you're doing.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you.
You know, speaking of blurry, one person asked me if your blurry work is tripod related or handheld.
Handheld.
It's always handheld,
Yeah.
unless it's like a formal portrait session, and then the subject moves.
Yeah.
But
I always bring a tripod, and I have the best of intentions, and it always sits in the trunk, and I'm like, oh yeah, I should have a tripod.
yeah, I think it's handheld because that gives you the option of tracking the subject and following the subject while they move. So the subject's in focus and the background's blurry, but it also gives you the option to just keep the camera steady and let your subjects move in front and create the blur themselves while the background stays sharp. So it gives you some more options, I suppose.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think that really distinguishes you guys, that you really started pushing a lot of. I mean, of course, it wasn't exactly a new thing. You didn't invent it, but I mean, the way that you're doing it is really, really well put to good use. So, I mean, I think that it's also important to sort of have things that, characterize, your personal style and, separate you guys from other photographers. So, and that's one thing that is definitely, evident, is this feel of movement and this feel of it being very fluid. And it's great. I mean, it's fantastic. Was that a conscious thing? How does that come about for you guys?
Well, I guess that stems from our influences, I suppose. We both have interest in fashion photography, fashion and whatnot. Not necessarily fashion, but more fashion photography for me and you.
Yeah.
Some of our favorite photographers, such as like Paolo Roversi, for example, a really great Italian photographer, shoots large format fashion work of like haute couture and stuff. He's known for using shutter speeds. I think his fastest shutter speed is a half a second. Now he obviously has to have his stuff on a tripod, so he taps his camera sometimes to move it. Sarah Moon, also another example of a photographer who embraces slow shutter speeds and a bit of motion blur. I think wedding photography, I think what we saw happening, I think the implementing slower shutter speeds wasn't necessarily a conscious decision. It was more of just an aesthetic choice. And I think it's interesting that, not interesting, I think wedding photography sometimes can look a little rigid. And there's so much rigid in terms of like fastest shutter speed available and like people looking stiff and almost like a lack of movement in the pictures. And everybody goes bananas over like the sharpest camera, the sharpest lens. And I think we just kind of wanted to step away from that a little bit. And using the slow shutter speeds does, as you said, create a feeling of movement. And what about you?
Well, I mean, to get away from the technical, for me, like when I started doing a slow shutter speed, it wasn't a technical thing, and I wasn't thinking about. I guess I wasn't thinking about it from a technical standpoint. I guess just if you think about how we remember things, our memories aren't clear. Our memories aren't tack sharp, and even if you think about the best day of your life, you might remember like a glimmer of sunlight or like the way something felt in your hands or a smell, but it's not like a tack sharp, rigid, F-16 perfect thing. And so I don't know, I just started thinking about it from that way and just started shooting how I imagine memories might be in your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you remember? Well, I'm sure you remember, but it was on your wedding day, and there's one particular image that I sent you guys where you're dancing.
Oh, I love that one. We have it framed.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, we love that one.
And it's it's like an eighth of a second or something, and it's just framed in just a way. Joel's hand's holding your hand. It's just like the most tender little moment. Let me ask you a question. How important is it for you to sort of like present it? Like, do you do this for you, or do you do this because you want to show like a linear view of this wedding day? Because, well, just go ahead and tell me that.
Do you mean the edit?
The presentation, I mean, it's very like, this is the beginning, like we're entering, you know, the blog post, this format. Is that something you do for yourself because you want to show it that way? You want me, the viewer, to see that? Or do you present it that way because it matters to you?
That's a good question. To be honest, I haven't really thought of it. I think we do it for ourselves, right? Would you say? I mean, we want it to be succinct and not to go on too long. We see some blog posts that just drag on forever, and we don't. We certainly try to edit as tight as possible, so that we can show the day in not too many pictures, but pictures that matter, I suppose.
We never want the viewer to just, you know, scroll crazy fast and like skip over parts. So we edit our blog post down to what I think is won't encourage them to scroll through it too quickly.
Yeah.
I hear you. I feel you 100%. And I think, you know, a lot of, I mean, I don't want to talk about like technique and photography and that, but there is a certain level of like technique involved in terms of getting these. And one of the questions I had that came our way was, you know, are you guys going to do a workshop? Are you interested in giving workshops? And I asked, well, is there anything in particular that you want to learn from Joel and Justyna? And they just wanted it all, you know, all of it. So have you guys ever thought about, you know, teaching or, you know, taking on a class? Is that something that might happen in the near future?
To be honest, we've talked about it. We've never been asked to do a workshop, so I think that might be probably one of the only reasons that we wouldn't. Sometimes we talk about it and we wonder what we would have to really talk about in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the tough thing is, like, we've been to a few workshops before. The tough thing is you can't learn that much over a one-day or a weekend course. And I would feel weird giving somebody like a one-day or weekend experience and just kind of like scratching the surface.
Why? What do you think can't be learned over the weekend?
What's that?
What is unique? Like, what do you think you cannot communicate to somebody? If I'm taking your course and I'm really, you know, influenced by your work and I want to spend time with you and listen to you speak, what do you think that you cannot communicate to me that won't make me a better photographer?
I think it comes down to the base we've laid for ourselves in terms of what we find aesthetically pleasing. We've been both looking at, art books and fashion magazines and a lot of different influences that have kind of that have seeped into our minds and kind of created the aesthetic that I guess we're known for. That's kind of like a lifestyle adaptation, I suppose.
It takes years.
I mean, I love Art Nouveau and I love going to galleries and I love photography that isn't wedding related. And we explore a lot of that in our spare time. And by absorbing all those outside influences, we can project that into our wedding photography. And that's hard to do in a day or two, or to communicate in a day or two. I think, I mean, we could share techniques and we can, I think if we were to ask to do a workshop, I would love an open forum like this, like you're asking us questions. I think that would probably be the best way to, for us to share info, but to stand up there and give a talk about what we do. I'm not sure if we would have that much to talk about. Yeah,
the tough thing is, like, I've seen workshops done where it's just like, oh, watch a live shoot, but how do I put this? If you're shooting your subject and you have 20 eyes behind you watching, you're not going to shoot the way that you normally shoot because there's 20 eyes watching. Like, it's really hard to replicate that in a workshop form. Like I don't know, if you're doing a portrait session, it's different if it's just me and the person I'm shooting versus me, the person I'm shooting, and 20 people watching. It adds another dynamic. Layer, and it's hard to show that properly. Yeah, I guess.
We would. I mean, I suppose if somebody asked us to, and depending on the workshop and what it was about, we might consider it.
what makes you guys, happy as photographers? I mean, I'm looking at your website, and I think, a lot of people have seen your work and are really happy you're making these images. But what makes you feel good about them?
Do you want to think about your answer?
Yes.
So for me, I think I'm absolutely happiest on a wedding day when I find like a holy grail of light that is unexpected in a venue that people look down upon. That makes me super happy. Like a challenging venue that people are like, yeah, you're not going to get anything there. But if I find like a good window, like that wedding in specific, one of our photographer friends in California emailed us and he's like, man, it's so tough to shoot there. I can't believe you got those shots. That to me is like, yay.
Oh yeah, did someone say that?
Yeah.
About the Queen Mary?
Yeah, the Queen Mary. Because I mean, the thing is, if you go to the Queen Mary, it's filled with tourists. It's a boat, so you have tiny little windows, not necessarily great light. It's just, I love tougher locations that we can pull great shots out of. Those are my absolute favorites. Like if you're handed like an amazing location with amazing light on a silver platter, and like you can just kind of point the camera anywhere and get a great shot. That's nice, but those are rarely the images that I'm super proud of.
Mm-hmm. For me, it's I think for me, the images that make me happiest are the ones, if I'm shooting the couple, for example, it's when they have full abandon, and I can remember the moment and remembering them being completely in their own moment without me influencing it. It's a kind of a clumsy way of saying it, but actually, Micah, when you photographed our wedding, you were like a ninja. You had this little Fuji camera and you approached it's like you weren't even there, but you were there. And that was a big influence, I think, on us. And it almost changed our shooting style a little bit because I think because you were subtle, you're almost like a fly on the wall. It allowed us to really be in the moment and not have this, enormous SLR in our face. And you weren't like, okay, guys, do this, do that, do that. You kind of went with the flow. And I think that's what we do now too. We try to set our couples up in a nice situation. And then ideally we want to photograph them so that they forget that we're there. And I think the shots that are my favorite are the ones that emulate that, where I can see the couple forgot about us for a second and they were just really into each other. And for me, those are my favorites.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time picking mine because there's so many good ones, actually. No, I hear you 100%, and I'll take all the compliments I can get at that.
But for example, like there was a shot there on the previous page on the Queen Mary wedding. It's the intro photo of the mother adjusting her daughter's dress right there in black and white.
Oh, down here, yeah.
Yeah, I love that shot because it kind of looks set up, but it wasn't set up at all. I mean, I think we asked her to just go over there, and then her mom came in and started fluffing her dress, and I thought, wow, that's great. And she put her hand on her chest like she was almost slightly startled by seeing her mom there turning around. That I love. The body language, the little bit of slow shutter speed there, the mother just helping her daughter out. I don't know, for me, that was everything. And the light was lovely there too. Nice dark background, so the contrast spot. I don't know, for me, when I did that shot, I'm like, oh yeah, that was a good one. It made me happy, and they forgot that we were there at that point. So, but I think ultimately, we both walk away from weddings, me specifically, I always feel the best when I know that the bride and groom had a good time and that they remembered their wedding day in a really positive way, and that it wasn't about this big photo shoot that happened, this 8 to 12 hour photo shoot. It was about their day. And when we receive compliments about that, like, oh, you guys were so easy to work with, it's like you weren't even there. That for me is like, that's what I'm happiest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the most important thing. I mean, I don't know about you, but I find a lot of my couples, when I'm speaking with them, they love photography and they're really excited about photography, and they obviously want to make an investment in photography, but they don't want to spend a lot of time doing photography. And that's good, because I feel like the most important thing for me as a photographer is to just do whatever I can to make sure that they are having an amazing time. Because, I mean, yes, I'm responsible at the end of the day to deliver a collection of images, but if I just pull their hand around all day and putting them in beautiful spots and asking them to smile and do things and taking them away from the people that they've invited to spend this huge day with, it just wouldn't feel the same way for them. And I mean, not everybody's comfortable being in front of a camera. Joel, you might be more comfortable than others because you've been behind the camera and in front of the camera a lot too. But I think a lot of people, they see images like this and they think, wow, everyone looks so like fun and they look happy and they look really relaxed. And I agree that one of the things that makes me really happy as a photographer, I think most photographers would feel that way, is when you just put your clients at ease and they can just be whoever they want to be. They don't have to think about the photography or think about the camera. They can just have a good old time in their undies and laugh it up, because, I mean, they trust you. And I think that's one of the big things about photography, is that your clients have to trust you, and you can tell when your clients feel good when you're around, because you get images like this. And that's the important thing, is that they're happy that you're there, and you're bringing in an element into the room that's positive and that makes them feel happy. Otherwise, you wouldn't get these kind of images. So, that's, talking about workshops, that's one of the things you just can't. There's no shortcut to that. You just have to be able to just figure it out and have killer instinct and be a good human being first and a good photographer second. But, part of the reason I want to talk with you guys is about your photography, but it's also about you and Joel, like, working together and what that's like, and as far as having a, relationship and having a business,
It's not. I think, I don't know. We've been married 4 years this year, so it's not nothing, but it's not that long. But I think I have to say that I'm probably not supposed to say this, but whatever, it is what it is. My relationship with Joel trumps everything else. It's number one. Like, it's more important than our work. It's more important than career. Like, it just is. If you want to have a successful marriage, I think, this is me 4 years in. It's got to be more important than anything else. And I don't know. I guess I'm proud of that.
Thanks, sweetheart.
You know what? You know what's actually funny? You know why? Because I know that during your wedding, you gave your speech, and during your speech, you came up and you were like, I didn't think of anything to say. I'm totally like, I don't even know what to say right now. And then you just sort of went on. You didn't go on, but you talked about how you met Joel, and that at the time that you had met Joel, you were doing some creative project, and he came to be a part of it in some degree. You were both in relationships at the time, and but there was definitely something there, and that was it. But you wanted to find ways, or try to find ways, to keep Joel in your life some way, by maybe introducing him to a friend of yours, or maybe he can go out with so and so, just so he can sort of be in there. And now look at you guys. It's still so it's great to see that, because I remember that moment. I remember a lot of people feeling really touched by that, because it was a really touching moment, and it was great.
Thanks, Michael.
See, I remember. Do you guys remember all the stuff that happens at these weddings? Because I can remember a lot of what happens, especially during the speeches.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive that you remember.
Yeah, you know what?
Remember that.
It's that, like, our wedding is a bit of a blur, and if I had one regret, it would be not hiring a videographer for the speech portion, because I remember little bits and pieces of speeches, and I remember Joel did his speech before mine, and I was like, oh my god, you wrote something! Holy crap! And it was just such a blur that I remember it being really sweet, but I don't remember what you said. I wish I did.
It's okay.
But it was sweet.
Thanks,
that.
Yeah, I remember. I have it written down somewhere.
Yeah?
I think so.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
I'd like to see it again.
Okay.
Great.
We'll take it out of the archives. Yeah, I think, yeah, like Justyna said, relationship has to come first, because if we don't have that as a base, everything else is going to suffer for it.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to work well together, and it's just like a chain reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, our relationship has to come first.
Yeah, I would say like our career comes third, to be honest. That's something that I learned from Joel. Like first is, kind of lines are blurred. Like first is us as a couple. The second priority is our own individual happiness, and then career. And I think before I started working with Joel, I had it all backwards. I had career must come first always, and then everything else. But it's, I don't know, if you do that, you're always anxious and stressed, and you know, your career's never going to actually fulfill you in the way that being, I don't know, a happy, confident person with yourself will. Does that make any sense? I don't know.
What do you think that, if other people, because I know that there's some people that I've spoken to from my local photography group that are, boyfriend and girlfriend and have a good thing going, that look at you guys and might say, maybe we can make a thing. Maybe we can make this work. Do you have any, what would you say to another couple that wanted to start a business together, not necessarily a photography business, but start something up and, keep it, win at both?
I mean, I suppose I wanted to say set boundaries, but I mean, we don't really we do set boundaries.
Okay. I think we have a couple things that work for us. Like really, really random things. Living in a 2-story house.
If you're gonna live and work at home, if you're gonna work at home,
2-story house.
Having the 2 stories has been really like a little blessing that we didn't realize. And I know a lot of people have 2 stories, but some people don't. And I think having that physical separation a little bit.
Yeah, because Joel works upstairs and I work downstairs. And so like we don't have to, like he can pretty much play whatever music he wants, work however he wants behind a closed door, and I can do the same thing downstairs. And we don't really interfere with how we work.
Yeah. So some kind of physical separation is really important.
Yeah.
I think it is, though.
Yeah. And I think early on, like we had to work out quite a few kinks because we do have different working styles. It's just being really honest and open about what your expectation is from the other person and out of work. And we're still kind of finding a balance. We're still kind of figuring out that. But it's good.
Yeah.
We're talking.
I think we have a pretty good balance. But for other couples wanting to work together, I think having your own space can be important. You don't want to see, like, I love you, but I don't want to see you like 24 hours straight every day. And you don't want to see me. Yeah, right. So, I mean,
it's so funny. Like we're talking about getting another house now, and Joel's like, "No, we don't need anything that big." La la la. I'm like, "No. I know it's just 2 people, but we need 4 bedrooms. We need our bedroom, your personal room, my personal room, and a guest room for when people come over." Like you do actually need physical space, I think, if you're going to be a couple that lives and works together, so that you're not always,
But again, I think it still comes back to put your relationship first.
Yeah.
And then work second, or it's not going to work.
Yeah, neither. Your business isn't going to work and your relationship isn't going to work if you're not, I don't know.
That's good news. That's good advice. Definitely. Well, hey, I don't want to keep you guys longer, but I do want to thank you guys so much for taking a few minutes and sharing some information with me about all the topics we've been covering. I know it's going to be well received, and I just want to thank you guys a lot for putting in all the amazing work and producing such good images. I know a lot of people are really happy and look up to you guys as photographers, and now they know you're cool people too. So.
Thanks, Michael.
And hopefully I'll be talking with you guys again sometime soon.
Okay, I hope so.
Okay.
Okay, good luck, man.
Bye.